Hello, and thanks for checking out this video. My name is Zach, and I'm a lifelong reader of science fiction, fantasy, comics, manga, business, personal development, and everything in between. And today I'm sharing my quick thoughts and a overview of the first book of the Licanius Trilogy, which is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. So this book, I just finished it, and I want to get my thoughts and kind of feelings on the book before I forget it, before I lose that feeling, and because I've already purchased book 2 and 3. They're on sale right now with the Audible core series sale or central sale. So I also picked up book 1 over their winter sale. So this is the series that is popular on Audible for a reason. I love this first book, and it frequently goes on sale. So if you're recording this in March of 2025, during the core series essential sale on Audible, but if you wait for it to come up again, I'm sure it's going to be on sale. But even if it's not on sale, it was definitely worth the credit. So this book, I was sort of on the fence on for the longest time to pick up because it's, I think, a bit controversial, or at least the reviews on Reddit are maybe a little less positive than you see on Audible. So on Audible, it's gushing. Everyone seems to love it, but on maybe the hardcore fantasy subreddits like our fantasy, sort of a mixed bag. And I think that's why I did like it. So I read the author's bio, and Islington mentions that his inspirations are Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time, and Brandon Sanderson, Stormlight and Mistborn. So if you're into either of those series and I guess modern quote unquote fantasy in general, this is worth picking up because it's, this new breed of fantasy and in the modern times and with a more modern feeling than what came before, which are the author's influences of Sanderson and Jordan. So that being said, when I delve into this, I maybe went in with the wrong mindset that maybe I'm not going to like this, but I'm going to give it a shot based on these super popular ratings on Audible. And this is defines for me what I like in a fantasy series because I don't see any of the criticism. This was definitely speaking to me. So I started those first couple chapters. It's a fantasy novel, so a little lost, I guess. You're just dropped into the world, which, like you are in most fantasy series, it mirrors a lot of Wheel of Time in the sense that it's a lone hero, young boy in his town village, and then they're thrust on the journey. But this has happened so fast. So I feel this is an improvement of some of my criticisms with Wheel of Time, and it shows what you like in a reader. So if you're into that long expose and world building and I guess character driven plot, which is clearly Wheel of Time. It takes so long for anything to happen. This book sort of tries to fix that, quote unquote, in the series, in that things move at a much faster pace. So I like that, and I enjoyed that, and I feel that's one of the strongest points of this novel is that things keep moving, and it's plot. Everything happens for a reason, and we just go through so many events. And I guess that's telling for me now that I think I am definitely a plot-driven reader, or at least maybe that's just my mood at the moment because I've read the first 4 or 5 of Wheel of Time. See, it's already a blur because they're so long. And very little happens, but yes, we got to know the characters and we love the characters. And on the Sanderson side, I really loved Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. I thought they were so amazing at the time, maybe when I was kind of just getting back into fantasy. But when in truth, I struggled a bit. It was just so plotting, and you spend so much time with the characters, even with the whole, the day arc and the timeline countdown to the contest. It was just so much, character interactions and thoughts and feelings. And then when you come from a Wind in Truth, which is, hours and hours of listening or reading, to this one, The Shadow of What Was Lost, things just move so much faster and we advance so far in the plot in just the first book. So I've only read the first book. So even though, I mentioned I bought the second and third books, I'm committed to finishing this because I enjoyed it so much. So that being said, the other positives I like was just all of that like influences of the past. I feel, even though this is a debut novel, I feel Islington really was trying to, improve and put his own spin, of course, on the genre by taking those things that he liked from series like Wheel of Time, from Stormlight or Mistborn, and incorporating those into his own formula for what he feels a fantasy novel should be. So there's a lot of tropes that are common to fantasy series that made it feel really familiar. So there was a lot of world building in the sense that this is, there's a past civilization. There's some kind of ancient civilization in a past that our characters are dealing with and that's affecting the current state of the world. So we're uncovering a bit of this, ancient mystery, the ancient battle, and what led to the creation of the boundary. And in that being a trope, just like maybe like the Wheel of Time, where it's the Dark Lord coming back, very similar to here, there's a boundary that's weakening. So also maybe think of like a Song of Ice and Fire, where there's this invading forces on the horizon, and or like Wheel of Time, the seal is weakening, the seal on the boundary is weakening, and we're starting to see this looming threat of the return of some kind of ancient evil, or maybe not ancient, but we see the link to the past, that this is the past threat is coming back for more. And there is the return of the ancient evil, the return of the dark one. So very similar to a Wheel of Time influence there, but with a little bit of a spin on it. And yeah, this maybe talk a little bit of spoilers, but who the dark one is and who the chosen one is kind of subverted your expectations a little bit, even though, there's a lot of foreshadowing and, hints that where it's going to go. Even in this first book, at the end of the first book, it just really pulled me in. And that's why I immediately said, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and read the next part of the series, because we have our core cast of main characters very similar to like a Wheel of Time, where you have 3 or 4 young adult characters finding their way, and one of them is the chosen one. But a little bit more complex is that 2 of them kind of seem to be the chosen one. So Davian and Caden, and maybe Weir, as you get through this, all of them could be the chosen one. And it's really interesting the interplay between the characters, of how they each kind of have their strengths, and they're each kind of coming into their own powers, or revelations, I guess is a better term than powers, of where they fit in this puzzle. So I thought that was really well done. I love the interactions of all the characters, and even Asha, because she's also, plays a role of, what's going on with her. But it's, again, it's slightly different than Wheel of Time. You don't have the Dragon Reborn, maybe yet. I don't know what's coming in book 2 and 3, but you kind of have some of these inclinations of where things are going, but it's still its own twist to it. And I thought it was a really unique spin on it. And on the like the chosen one genre, or found family, band of brothers, coming together, young kids to save the world. And this is a little bit of a spoiler, but I read it in a Reddit review, and it's mentioned in a lot of the Audible reviews. But one thing that drew me in, and not to talk, I guess, too much about it, because I don't really know what's going on, is the time travel element. And this is what I think really sold me on the series, and what pulled me in. Knowing that there was going to be a time travel element as I was going through the first book, I kind of tried to maybe overanalyze scenes of what is happening, and it did give me a better perspective to think more critically about what was happening and why things were happening. So while it's maybe a little bit of a spoiler that you don't really learn that there is a time travel element until midway to it, learning that earlier, starting the book, I kind of also thought more critically about why things were happening, or when things were happening, or how the characters were interacting. Which is, I think, the one few negatives, is that maybe the characters aren't developed enough. So one of the early events is the events of the school. I think it happens like chapter 2 or 3. And honestly, maybe because I was doing something else while I was listening to this, I was, I think, cycling for, on a bike ride. So I may be slightly zoned out while I was paying attention to something else. But I feel like it wasn't that big of a deal to the characters that I didn't realize like how impactful this event at the school was to their development, because the characters don't really talk about it. Like, they don't talk about their feelings, which I guess is good because, in the context of the story, that's what the author's going for. They're just trying to advance the plot, not necessarily their thoughts and feelings to it, but it didn't really have the gravity that maybe would have been given to an event like this by a Jordan or Sanderson, that they would have spent chapters of dealing with the trauma or the ramifications of what happens. But I kind of even missed that it happened and that Asha was the only one to come out of the event there. And it doesn't seem to affect the other characters much later. So if anything, that could be a negative, or it could be a positive, that the character development's not so much done through their introspection, but through their actions and the journey that they take. So again, it's the plot-driven structure versus the character growth. But I don't want to say character growth doesn't happen, because, well, character growth happens like on a magical scale level, that they're coming into their powers, and as you would expect from a fantasy novel, that the character arc grows and they learn about who they are as a character in relation to the world. Like, I'm thinking of Davian here, very well done. And Weir, I think, was a really well done character as well. He maybe parallels a little bit with like a Matt character-ish, in the sense that he kind of aligned himself. He has his own kind of thing going on. Maybe there's another parallel, or I'm thinking too much Wheel of Time to do a one-on-one comparison, because Davian or Caden could be the Rand character. And that's like the weird dichotomy, that these two characters are also both kind of the chosen ones-ish archetype. Yeah, this is, well, maybe won't make sense unless you read it, but I liked what Islington was doing with those characters by not being so cookie cutter chosen one trope, which, like, maybe a product of the time those old 90s 80s fantasy novels have, which I've read tons of before. And this being a more modern fantasy novel, it's still kind of using those tropes but exploring them in interesting ways. Another, I guess, series that I compared it to as I was getting to the time travel parts that I loved was thinking of the Fate series. So if you are familiar with Fate series, the anime manga series, visual novel, I guess technically, of Unlimited Blade Works, the way Archer's character is a little bit similar to what's going on with Davian, I think. Again, I don't want to make too many assumptions because it could be totally off base of how the story goes, but there is that time travel element and predestination. And I thought that was a really interesting concept, that when Rand is learning about this whole time travel thing in this, very cool session. I love the Mashash. I'm totally butchering the name when he's in the city outside of time. So cool. I love that. That was my absolute favorite part. But the fact that we don't know who these characters are, how they interact, and they even mention like a multiverse, but then he's corrected in saying that there is, using a Marvel reference, that there is only one sacred timeline and that there isn't a branching timeline, or at least that's what we as the readers are being told at this point. So I love that even right now, as I talk about it, I'm not sure which way they're going, because there is a time travel element. That, are we getting fed this information to throw us off? Are the characters telling the truth in service of some greater plot points? Like, is this revelation being told to us to guide Davian on a certain path? Or is it one of those things where they're trying to change the past or change the future? Yeah, very cool. I love that kind of like interplay of fate and destination. Do we have free will? And how time travel relates to that. Is it all predetermined fates? Along with this whole magic system and the gifted and the augurs. Yeah, very cool. I loved everything laid out in here as I'm gushing about it. I think the positives really outweigh the few negatives, which, if anything, are the character development being a little less, involved in knowing the characters. I feel like I do know Davian, but I don't really know them like on a level like I know a Rand or a Matt in Wheel of Time, or Kaladin and Stormlight, you feel like you really know their characters' motivations. But we do get enough. That's not a knock to it. I think from my enjoyment, I got enough of the characters to understand a little bit of their motivations and what the interplay and the politics are going on in the larger world and this empires and everything. So I highly recommend it. If you liked kind of the feeling of Stormlight, but you thought it was maybe too long or similar to Wheel of Time, if you thought the Wheel of Time was too slow paced, I would say give the Licanius Trilogy a shot because it has those feelings and kind of the vibe of the worlds and what the author is going for while moving the plot ahead full steam and being more plot-driven book. Even though it is still a long book, a long audiobook to listen to in the 20-hour range for the audiobook, this is not a 20-hour volume 1. It's only a trilogy, so I think, he's moving the plot that would maybe take a Wheel of Time 3 or 4 books. He's doing that in one. A lot happens here, and it's a really great ride. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was totally credit worthy. It was worth the check out. I loved The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. I would give this a 5 out of 5. I had a great time in the world, despite a few of the flaws. And if you can forgive an author, this is a debut novel. So that's also an achievement that he did a lot well here. And based on the reviews and discussions on Reddit, it only gets better. As his first work, he's gonna improve as an author. And I hear the ending, just sticks the ending. So I'm very excited to read the next and the final book 2 and 3 of the Licanius Trilogy. So thanks for watching and hearing this pros, cons, and recommendations on The Shadow of What Was Lost. Have a great day.